Okay. Um, so good morning, members. I'm gonna go ahead and start this meeting since we don't have a co-chairman yet. And then once we have a co-chairman, they can take over. So for those of you that don't know, my name is Talise Hanson. I'm the staff attorney for the Legislative Service Office for this committee. And Heather Hunter is the legislative editor. So to get started, Heather will call the roll.
Senator Dockstader,
Here.
Senator Ide,
Here.
Senator Larson,
Here.
Representative Davis,
Here.
Representative Erickson,
Here.
Representative Wharf.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right, so the first order of business for the select committee this morning is to elect the co-chairs. The statute requires the select committee to select from among its members one senator and one representative to serve as co-chairman. Traditionally, all members of the select committee vote for both co-chairmen, and it takes a quorum, so that would be 4 to elect the co-chairman. So if there are no other questions, the floor is open for nominations.
I would nominate Bob Ide.
Need a second for that?
Okay, all in favor of Senator Ide being co-chairman, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, Senator Ide will be the co-chairman on the Senate side. So nominations are open for co-chairman for the House side.
I would nominate Bob Davis.
I would nominate Bob Wharf.
Okay, any seconds for either of those?
Second on Bob Wharf.
Okay. Okay, all in favor for Representative Wharf being co-chairman, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. I think that passes. Representative Wharf and Senator Ide will be the co-chairman for the select committee. So one of you guys would like to take over now, you may.
Go ahead, Bob. I'll defer to you.
Thank you. And
Support, Mr. Chairman.
thank you all. I appreciate the support on being co-chair first off. I guess from here, I think what's on our agenda is to talk about topics here of interest. And I've got a list that I've made of my own. I guess I could kind of start with that if that's the proper way to proceed with the meeting here right now, and get some input on that and ideas from everybody else that has an opinion on which topics we'd like to discuss. I did have a little conversation with President Beitman yesterday. He noticed that we were having our meeting today, and he wanted to throw a few things out there regarding the elk fire up in his neck of the woods. He's had a chance to sort of survey that after the fact, and wanted one of his items was to maybe bring in the powers that be regarding how that was handled, and whether that be the National Park Service or National Forest Service, to get their input. He said that the mitigation looked like it was lacking, and I kind of had that on my list too to discuss during the interim here, maybe the wildfire management policies that we've got, and kind of review those, take a look at where we're at with all of that. And then some of the other things I had on my list, I think that maybe a lot of us already know or don't know, but I would like to get more details on, the status of the Rock Springs and Buffalo RMPs, just to see where they are precisely right now. We got a new Interior Secretary, a new BLM director. Maybe we could bring one of those people in. I think that the new BLM director actually came to the Capitol during session, and I know our leadership had discussions with her, and they were fairly well impressed. But it'd be nice to have a meeting if we could, and bring in the top people there that we can get. The other thing that I had on here, Biden's BLM or Biden's moratorium on oil and gas leasing. I know 4 years ago they shut that down almost 100%, and then they've kind of trickled a little bit back in, but it hasn't been very good. I mean, I noticed one federal lease sale had, a couple hundred acres on it total. These are just thoughts. I've got a couple more here. Our federal mineral royalties are 51-49%. And I was doing a little research on Alaska. They have a certain area in Alaska that they get 90-10 split with the feds. I'd like to review that and see if there's any negotiations that we could entertain there, outside of a full federal land transfer that we tried to get a resolution through in the Senate, and it failed on a tie vote, 15-15 on third reading. But I think we really need to stay in front of, in particular, our minerals. I mean, our minerals are 70% of our entire within our borders. I mean, surface is about 47, and the feds control right at 70% of our mineral estate. I mean, we're a half of a state effectively. So I'd like to keep that front and center. The last one I've got on here, and I know, and I've heard, and Representative Erickson, you've been in the timber industry. I think that's going to be a big asset for our committee here. Right toward the end of our session, Trump did a executive order to try to streamline, permitting and regulations. And it would be nice to get a little closer to what all of that means and how we can do something in that realm from our committee, and how we can push the needle there too. So those are just kind of the things that I've got that I had written down. And I'd like to hear from what anybody else has to say, and we can kind of get a list. Senator Dockstader. Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. On the concept of the timber industry. Yes, and we're starting to work on that again. I met with a collaborative group that we have over here on the west side of the state. We're trying to get some small cells going, and I'm wondering how our organization could step in and help push that through, because the timing is just right to do this. And it would affect a lot of small industry, and it would also open up roads, help with wildlife migration, all of that, if we could get the whole timber industry up and going. I realize we can't have it as big as what we used to have, but there are potential small projects out there that could get everything started.
Very good. I like that. I actually spent part of a couple of summers when I left the ranch in just running a skidder and a chainsaw up in Beaufort, Colorado, and one outside of Tie Siding. So these small timber stands are important. And I think a lot of the focus, is maybe on the bigger operators. And it's good to hear. I'm glad that you're in front of that over there. I think that's great. Maybe we should have a meeting over in that area to take a look at some of what's going on there.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah. Anybody else? Representative Wharf.
Yeah, Mr. Co-Chair, at the same meeting that Senator Dockstader referred, we had some discussion about the roadless rule. And it was brought up that Idaho kind of came up with their own roadless rule. And it kind of got the wheels spinning in my head. And I wondered if we shouldn't be doing the same thing, if we shouldn't be looking at defining our roadless rules in the state. Because it sounded like to me that if the state was to take the lead, there's really not a lot that the federal government can do if we start asserting that authority. And I do think that it's our authority to decide where the roads are, where they're not, how our forests are managed in the state. And I think it's something that, based on the meeting that we had in Southwest Wyoming, I think it's something that we should pick up as a committee as well and review that, see if we can't come up with some action there.
That sounds great. In fact, that reminds me, this kind of dovetails into what President Biteman mentioned that I didn't mention it from the start was he had a thought of trying to see if there was any conversation with the feds on controlling federal oil and gas lease sales as well. I mean, that kind of ties in with what you're saying there on taking control of the roadless stuff. These are all just ideas, but he did bring that up to see if there's any conversation we can have to get control more of our oil and gas lease sales because it's a huge part of our budget in Cheyenne, that's for sure. Yeah. The federal mineral royalties, I think the federal mineral royalties, I've got it. I had all of those data points, but it was, I think, $400 million is what we received last year in 2024 on federal mineral royalties. So, and that's down from about $1 billion in 2008. So something, I guess that's what we're tasked with here on this select committee. Yeah.
And I do think that's something that I think we have to, I keep looking at how, and I use it as an example, but I see how Colorado decided that they were going to legalize marijuana. And even though it's illegal federally, because the state has decided that they're going to manage it, the feds got out of the way because they really don't have the way to intercede and stop that. And I think we as this committee should start looking at our natural resources and trying to decide what veins we can exploit similar to that. Because I do think the state has a lot more authority. It's just a matter of us, picking up that mantle. And obviously, if we pick it up, we got to take responsibility for whatever we pick up. But I think you're right, Bob. I think we should be looking at, what percentage of the minerals we get to keep. I've always said it bothered me. The Western states are kind of treated as quasi states. I mean, we're really not truly treated as though we're a sanctioned state. I feel quite often we're kind of under the thumb of the entire country, but we should be exercising our sovereignty more. And I would hope the committee will think along those lines because I think that's what we're tasked with.
Very good. Those are great points.
Yeah, Senator.
Yeah, Representative Erickson.
Thank you. I appreciate you bringing up those items prior to, especially on the timber. One thing that I've really gained a lot of traction in here recently is working through the some of the collaborative members that Senator Dockstader was talking about being a part of. It's called the Great River Collaborative Working Group. And something that we've kind of found out that would, I think, be almost seamless through this committee is how this, it's called Good Neighbor Authority. And maybe you're aware of that, but to be honest with you, that's the only reason that we have received the small amount of timber sales over here recently is when the state comes in and administers them. So the state forester is responsible, and the federal government gives that good neighbor authority over to the state. And boy, it's working like just nearly seamless over in Idaho, even though it's a noticeably different management style over there in the Caribou Targhee that is just across the border here, 3 miles away from my home, in comparison to the Bridger Teton. And some of that has to do with their ability to work with the state forester. as well as it's just, we very well know, and I think Senator Dockstader said it well the other day, we're managed out of Jackson Hole and with the Jackson Hole values there. And, we're managed not for multiple use. And so just the bottom line of multiple use is just not happening. It gets put in the pipeline, so to speak, but it never trickles out the end. It just doesn't happen. So I don't know. I think maybe that good neighbor authority could really be a tool for us to start turning up the valve a little bit, because it's not like we're not in need of projects. We're sitting on some of the urban wildfire fronts that are as bad as anywhere in the state, through Alpine and that area there. And so we're just one bad fire season away from what happened upon Togety and over on Elk Mountain, and in you guys' country. So
Representative Erickson, did you sit in on the ag committee put in they had that thing in the auditorium during session. They had the state forester and the National Park Service guy, I think, out of Denver, or I think National Forest Service guy. Did you listen in on that when they were there a couple of 3 weeks ago or whatever? Yeah.
Yeah, that was my biggest regret. I can't remember what happened. I was there, but I just didn't make the connection of that. But my good desk mate, Representative Davis, brought me back a lot of the information from that, and I have some of that. But yeah, that was exciting, and that kind of triggered what I just talked about, because
Right.
I thought there was a good start from what I'd heard about that we could jump on the coattails of that and see if we can further get that going and rolling.
For sure. Senator Larson, you had your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. That was a suggestion I had, definitely bringing in the state forester and getting an update and giving her our direction of where we
Yeah.
want to head. But I'm guessing it'll be pretty close to what the ag committee wants also.
Mm. Yeah.
Representative Erickson, tell us a little of your background in the timber industry.
Well, I have my brother has always been in the small uh sawmill and thus logging. You do your own logging when you're in the small mill, but his small mill played a huge part in, kind of bringing us up a little bit, and starting of the building boom, and a lot of the agriculture was using the rough cuts timber for their main buildings. So he did that for about 30 years, and then I was the logging manager. So I went to all the Forest Service meetings. We've always been very involved in that, and because we have very little private land over here. A lot of the sawmills that you see still going throughout the state or the region are because they're around where there's a lot of private timber for sale, and we have zero to none of that. Once in a while I can get in, especially on some private where they're really looking to do some fuel reduction and fire mitigation stuff. But generally speaking, we're very dependent on them. And so I've been doing that I've owned that business, the logging business. I bought the logging portion from him 25 years ago. And it's now kind of turned into where I still have that, but because of the lack of timber available, especially the dead that is in demand right now, um, I've kind of went and diversified, and now I do a lot of cutting under the power line for right of ways for the power companies. And now that's actually, instead of it, of course you got to have them clear of the lines, but everyone is talking about these cutting fire lines in and doing fire mitigation work, and as was a couple of the bills this year specifically focused on these power companies are willing to do the work, but it seems as if the agencies are holding that up with, but yet they're talking about in other programs, oh, we've got to cut down on the wildfire. So it makes you wonder if they're really interested in that. However, with that being said, I also an interesting comparison, and I hope not to put too much of my own bias in here, but we've been working with Lower Valley Energy up around Grand Teton National Park, and they are wonderful to work with. I mean, they're just full speed ahead because they recognize that these power lines are also fire breaks, and they're just very focused on it. And then you come back and you work with a legal timber sale with the Forest Service, and they just look down their nose at you and basically don't want to have anything to do with you. But I find that unique, you know, because everybody's always got the question, well, what, I'll bet that's pretty tough up there because we were actually clearing this year right where that famous 399 bear has lived for 26 years, and we saw her on a regular basis and never had a single problem, never had a ranger come in, you know, and have any kind of concern. It was just what they could do to help us, and you know, a lot of that is Lower Valley Energy has a good relationship with them, but they got, I guess they caught the vision a lot earlier than has some of our uh, Forest Service folks that are trained, and this is their forte, you know. So it's just it has to be traced back to we've just been forced to sit on our hands, these professionals, because I believe there's some good people in there, but boy, their voice has been muted on these kind of projects, especially when it comes to multiple use. So
That's good. That's good to hear your background. You can add a
yeah,
lot to the
yeah,
side of the conversation for sure. And it sounds like my takeaway is what can we do to, as we talked earlier, streamline this, get the agencies are sort of the roadblock
yeah,
on harvesting and fire mitigation, it sounds
yes,
like. So maybe
yes.
we can focus on that as well.
Mhm.
So yeah, anybody else have any ideas or what you'd like to see? Representative Davis.
Yeah, as we all know, the forest yields water. So we need to keep an eye out on see what the Bureau of Rec is going to do and how they're going to manage those dams and reservoirs in our future here, you know, and what is coming down with that. And the other thing I'd like to keep an eye on is the EPA and their definitions of WOTUS and their air regulatory acts that may be affecting the whole state. And so I'd like to keep a little bit of a handle on what the EPA is doing.
Yeah, that's a good. I just was reading Cowboy State Daily this morning, and it sounds like we've got Representative Cyrus just got appointed to District 8 or whatever to the EPA. So he's a pretty high-ranking official now in the Trump administration. Maybe we got some good ties there. So yeah,
I think he's still the tail twister for it.
yeah, yeah. Representative Wharf, you you have anything to co-chair Wharf? Anything to add?
Well, I think we've got some pretty good opportunities that lie ahead. I think you know, after hearing the report from our representative, U.S. Representative Hageman, uh, you know, I think that we're poised to be able to play a greater role, not only in our state, but maybe in leading the nation, showing the states how to start taking back some of the responsibilities I think that the federal government's done. So I think just based on the stuff that was said at our meeting in Evanston, you know, I really think that the timing is right. I think we got a good administration that's going to be favorable to us. And I really think we've got a lot of opportunity. So I'm excited. Looking forward to working with you. And I also wanted to thank everybody for allowing me the opportunity to play a role as a co-chair with this select committee. And I think we've got some great opportunities that lie ahead. So I'm looking forward to it.
Mr. Chairman, I think we have the Wyoming County Commissioners Association online that wanted to provide some comments.
Very good. Bring in the first, there's one. Jeremiah Ryman, thanks for joining us. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Jeremiah Riemann here on behalf of the County Commissioners Association. Appreciate the conversation this morning. As you can imagine, county commissioners are involved in nearly all of the conversations that you're talking about here, and we would offer ourselves as part of that conversation and provide you with the work that we're doing. If you don't know, roughly half of our staff is natural resource focused on behalf of the counties, and I would make them a resource for you. Mr. Chairman, one thing I wanted to also offer the committee, 3 years ago, we started what we call the Congressional Tour Initiative. That is that we bring out somewhere between 15 and 20 high-level congressional staffers, primarily from non-public land states. We bring them out to Wyoming and tour various regions of our state. At this point in time, we've hosted 3 tours, visiting nearly all of your counties. This year, we will go through the last of the members of this committee's counties. We're going to be visiting Fremont, Natrona, Sweetwater, and Carbon counties. That tour will happen August 4th through 8th. And I would make an invitation to all of you to participate in that. We've had members of this committee in the past participate. I think they've found it of great value. Now that we're 3 years in, we are seeing some success from that. As you can imagine, some of these staffers are now in key positions in this administration and have been in other administrations. And that's given us a key connection. We have counties currently preparing the tour agenda for this year and our themes, but it's almost always natural resource related. You've talked a lot about Good Neighbor Authority. Last year, that was a key component of our tour with the state forester, with the Forest Service, and others. You might ask, how is this paid for? The counties decided several years ago to self-assess themselves. So every county in the state contributes to the program, regardless of whether that tour is going through their county that particular year. That builds long-term buy-in. We'll have 5 years, so this year and next year, and then we'll make an evaluation of whether we continue this particular tour based on the success we've had so far. I expect that would happen. But Mr. Chairman, again, I want to make a personal invitation to all of you to join us for that tour that happens this year. If you can't make it this year, we'd certainly extend that next year and hopefully into the years ahead. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Ryman? Representative Davis.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman or co-chairman. Jeremiah, do you guys are you looking at collaborative efforts? Is that what this does, is help foster those going forth? Is that the intent of bringing these people out there and showing them what's going on the ground and how we can work together to come up with good solutions?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Representative Davis, you hit it on the head. We take them to the collaborative work that's happening in Wyoming to solve natural resource issues on Wyoming's terms, how we do this out west in our particular state. We do that looking at, again, good neighbor projects. We've looked at sage grouse. We've looked at agricultural issues, mining issues, oil and gas. And I think, quite frankly, a lot of those staffers are quite shocked at the level of partnership and work that we can achieve working together with federal agencies, with other state agencies, and amongst of all the partnerships that exist here. And that's a big part of our success with this tour. We want them to see that we can do this in Wyoming. We don't need the federal overreach, and they can go back and ultimately consider that as their working issues in Congress.
Awesome.
Yeah, Mr. Raymond, thank you for that. Is that something that we could potentially schedule at one of our, how would that work? As far as tying us into that tour, would it, if we set dates for our meetings in the interim here, can we tie that together potentially with what you're talking about?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I guess maybe one request is that you not schedule over the top of our tour. And then we would love for individuals, and you don't have to get on the bus for the full tour. You can get on for a portion of it if that suits you. If you want to go through the tour, in particular for you, Senator, as it goes through Natrona County, we'd be happy to help facilitate that. And we're also happy to come to a meeting that might happen before this and tell you who the staffers are that we've targeted for this year's tour, what the exact tour is going to look like at that point in time. And maybe we can even do a debrief after this year's tour happens of, again, all of those things, what the outcomes of the conversations were, and where we're headed into 2026.
Very good. Talise, is that something you can kind of get the information from Mr. Raymond and Senator Dockstader?
I was just saying that I would like more information so we can get that on the calendar. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. That's where I'm at too. Thank you. Representative Worf.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I guess I would ask if Jeremiah could actually get us a copy of the agenda, kind of what the plan is. Obviously, when you're ready with that, Jeremiah, but I think it would be good for the committee to see that. Maybe, I don't know that we can participate all 4 of those days or all 5 of those days, but if we could see that agenda, maybe we could see when we could, and maybe as a committee, we can parse that out and have 2 of us come different days so that we've got somebody from the select committee at every leg of the tour.
Yeah, good idea.
Mr. Chairman, we can help facilitate that.
Great.
Mr. Chairman, can I get those dates again and the locations? I wasn't quick enough.
Yeah, sure. Mr. Chairman, Senator Larson, those dates are August 4th through 8th. The tour as it's set right now is going to start in Natrona County. Obviously, with the airport there, it makes it really easy for us to facilitate. It will then visit Fremont County, Sweetwater County, and Carbon counties.
Very good. Did that answer your question, Senator Larson?
Yes, thank you.
Yes. Anybody else? Ms. Hanson, do we have anybody else online?
I don't think so, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Raymond. Okay, I'm not sure. I guess we're going to need to talk about, just after listening to all that conversation, when we start picking dates here, it would be good, at least my takeaway from just what we've had so far is maybe pick some hard and fast subjects and try to take action instead of just listening to agencies and conversation and what we can do to implement what we talk about. And a lot of you guys that have more stripes on your shoulders know more than I do about how, we can, incorporate what we learn and in what we're trying to accomplish here with streamlining forestry stuff, trying to negotiate on, our share with federal mineral royalties, the roadless rule that you brought up, Representative Worf, how we can take action and get something done. Yeah. So.
Well, and I will, Mr. Chairman, I will try and track down what they were able to do in Idaho. I've got some people I know over there in that state, and I'll work with Representative Hageman, find out, specifically what was done and see what we can do to kind of mirror that. I mean, I just thought it was intriguing, the idea of us being able to kind of decide where we're going to have roadless areas in this state.
I think it's a great idea.
Mr. Co-Chairman?
Yeah, Representative Davis.
Yeah, it would seem to me that an action plan would happen after we've gathered the data, not so I would think we'd need some of this information first before we come up with an action plan to try and present to the legislature, for the upcoming session, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, yeah, you have to listen and learn before you can take action, but with the intention at the end of it to what are we going to do concrete wise to really make some change that we need. Absolutely. Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Larson.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thanks. So can you go over the topics? I think I had like 6 of them, and then I guess.
Mr. Chairman, I'll just note one thing quickly. So typically this committee submits a standard interim topics letter that mostly just has one priority, which says statutory responsibilities, and outlines just a few sentences about what our statutory responsibilities are. And then in the past, this committee has just added a few additional sentences like below that. Like, for example, last year they added the Good Neighbor Authority, a sentence about oil and gas leasing, a sentence about coal mining, and then they had updates regarding land management plans. So we can do something similar with that with the topics that you guys have mentioned today. The first priority will just be statutory responsibilities, and we can add in these sentences about the timber industry, the roadless rule, Good Neighbor Authority, updates on the plans, oil and gas leasing, federal mineral royalties, wildfire management policies. We can just add those sentences as like a second paragraph or whatever, but mostly this committee just has one priority, which is to do the statutory responsibilities, but we can definitely add all the things you guys discussed into a paragraph in that letter.
Does that answer your question, Senator Larson?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, that sounds good. Can we get a copy of that letter that you're gonna present? I guess co-chairman will do that.
Yep, Mr. Chairman, I'll finish drafting it today and I'll send it to the co-chairs for approval. And once they approve it, which the deadline is Friday, by the way, so we have a quick turnaround. I'll email it to the entire committee and you guys can see the whole letter, and then it'll be submitted on Friday to Management Council.
I have a quick question for you, Talise. When you mentioned the one priority of statutory responsibility, what exactly does that mean?
Yep, Mr. Chairman. So as you know, this select committee is a statutory committee. So the statute outlines what the committee is supposed to do. So the committee is required to review federal policies or actions that may impact the management, development, or use of the state's natural resources. The committee is authorized to develop and introduce legislation to federal policies and actions that are necessary to protect the state's interests, including issues related to the structure of ownership of federal lands within the state. And so it's a pretty broad statutory responsibility. So I think all the things you guys discussed today would fall within those dealing with natural resources and federal policies.
Very good. That helps. Thank you. Okay, what else? Anybody want to raise their hand for anything? Other priorities that we may have missed or want to take a look at. Guess we can maybe have a little wiggle room, I assume, as we move along. If somebody thinks of something and everybody kind of light goes off saying, yeah, we should have thought of that. So very good. So where do we go from here? Senator Larson.
Mr. Chairman, I guess at some point you'll decide on dates. Is it best if we just email dates that do not work? Does that sound like an okay thing?
Yeah. I think that's. I was about to ask about that. We've got this list that Talise sent out to us on the potential dates, and I guess if everybody has time, we could maybe sort through that a little bit right now. And if you guys want to, or if you want to just circle and send your priorities or your preferences to Talise, but is there any conversation there? It is. Go ahead, Senator Larson.
Mr. Chairman, I had some dates I cannot make, and I could throw those out if that works. And
sure, let's
Talise will
go
write
ahead
them
and
down.
get started. Yeah.
June 5 through 6 is not good.
Okay.
June 9, I'm not around, and July 14 through 18.
Okay. July 14th. What'd you say? July 14th through 18th?
Correct.
Okay.
I just wanted to throw those out. I'm
Okay.
sure others have their dates.
Has anybody else had a chance to look at the proposed dates and what doesn't work for them? Representative Davis.
Yeah, Mr. Vice Chair, those are the same dates that I have circled on here, the 12th, May 12th and 13th, June 5th, 6th through the 9th, and also July 14th through the 18th do not work for me.
Would you say those again, Representative Davis? May 12th through 13th?
May 12th and 13th, June 5th, 6th, and through June 9th,
Okay.
and then also the July 14th and through the 18th of July.
Okay.
And then I think, Mr. Co-Chairman, we need to discuss what regions we would like to visit on those 3 days also.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Anybody else have any preferences or not preferences?
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah, Mr. Chair
I
Ward.
haven't had a chance to look at the dates that Talise sent us, but I know I've got June 3rd, 4th, and 5th I can't meet. I've got the same period in July. I don't know if that's ALEC. That's what I've got is ALEC on my calendar. So I think that's it. Then I have in August, the 18th through the 21st, I couldn't meet. And then looks like November 5th and 6th and the 18th and 19th, I've got committee meetings.
Okay. So do you have all of that, Talise, so you can kind of start sorting through and figuring out what dates we can do? And it was a good point brought up on what regions we want to have those meetings, because I think that's important, definitely, especially as we heard testimony here over on the western part of the state. I think that's going to be maybe a good place for maybe our forestry gathering potentially, since we'll be in the heart of that. And you guys, Senator Dockstader and Representative Erickson, kind of have a little bit of of experience already to maybe lead that lead that meeting there on what agenda we may have. Yeah.
Mr. Co-Chair.
Yes, Representative Davis.
Also, it would be September 15th through the 20th. We have the CSG in Jackson also, so that would be kind of a big week that we would not want to meet, I don't believe.
Okay. Any other recommendations on how many meetings are we going to have? We're going to have 2 or 3. What's normal, customary on a select committee? I guess it depends on what's.
Mr. Chairman, this committee typically meets for 3 one-day meetings, and they're usually a very full one day, but it's usually just 3 one-day meetings.
Okay. Any as far as the western part of the state, is there a particular locale that you would like to have our one-day meeting there? Any recommendations? Do we want to have it in the 2 representatives over on that part of the state may have some comments on that. Representative or Senator Dockstader.
I'm just thinking when we come over, if we fit it in the schedule, might be interesting to have a representative from what Representative Erickson said, our Grays River Collaborative, give a presentation, because everything we're doing with that collaborative is based on federal land.
Mm-hmm.
May be able to set a template for some other folks across the state.
Yeah.
Very good.
Mr. Co-Chair.
Yeah, Representative Erickson.
Thank you. I also think that it'd be great to have it around here, but I know that there's a Wyoming Forestry Division that is over in Pinedale, and Pinedale. The only reason that I'm kind of leaning towards that is that's pretty much centered to where some of that work has actually been taking place, and so that would be one of my suggestions, is probably the Pinedale region, just because it's a little more easily accessed than far western. But I certainly would think that what Senator Dockstader talked about would be great to have it over here to use one of our collaborative, because I think it's known that this collaborative is right on the verge of making things happen and seeing some things positive come out. So.
Oh, that's great. That's great. I'll leave that kind of maybe up to you 2 guys, but we can discuss before we set those dates. But Pinedale, is an easy spot to get to for everybody. But if we need to get further west, like, Afton, whatever, I don't know what accommodations they have over there. You guys probably know better there, but this Talese can maybe take a look at that and figure out. What about the second locale? What are you thinking there? I mean, Representative Davis, go ahead.
Mr. Co-Chairman, I would suggest, with the situation that occurred last year, something up there in that Buffalo, up there in that region in the Northeast. And then also down there in that Laramie region, there's a big hub of the Forest Service down there that runs a lot of forests out of that area.
Yeah.
So I would think those may be 2 other locations to look at or consider.
Yeah.
Buffalo and Laramie. Yeah, I don't know if on the Buffalo one, if we could tie in that Buffalo RMP. I really don't know I haven't really researched it yet, but to see where we're at with that Buffalo RMP and how we can maybe influence that, lifting that ban on coal. Effectively, that's what that Buffalo RMP was, unless somebody tells me otherwise. But that was basically no more, or end coal leasing by 2040 or something like that, I guess, entirely. Yeah. I think that's a big deal. I mean, when you look at our coal lease bonus going to 0 the last couple of years, It's a real big deal. Yeah. Okay. Anything else? Have we covered everything? I'm kind of a greenhorn at this chairmanship thing here, so let Co-Chair Worf finish it off here if you want to.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No, I think you've done a fabulous job. No, I think that's good. I think all three of those locations are good places to consider meeting, and look forward to actually getting going. I'm excited.
Good.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, Senator Larson, we got a mix here. I kind of got to keep track of it.
Yes, thanks. I would ask if our senior Senator Dockstader, if he has any advice or ideas that maybe we're missing.
Yeah, great.
Our co-chairs are doing great. And I appreciate you reaching out for these meetings across the state, because we get out there and people can come in and see what we're doing. And especially on the west side, we're making an honest effort out here to get into these federal lands and make use of them, multiple use.
Yeah, thank you for that. I'm always, I like that comment because I get tired of Cheyenne and Casper, and we need to get out into the hinterlands and see what's really going on out in the field. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I would just ask that when we're done, if the co-chairs could just stay on for a second, just to do some housekeeping stuff.
Absolutely. Well, good. It was good seeing everybody. I think we have a good mix of committee here. I think hopefully we can do some good and bring home more freedom to the citizens of Wyoming.
I just have to ask Representative Erickson, what's your middle name? Oh,
Oh, you're on mute still. But we didn't hear you.
You're still muted.
You're still muted.
How about that?
That's better.
Yeah, it actually stands for my mother's maiden name, Lancaster. So they're old original residents of the valley. Some of the people that came in originally with big bands of sheep. So,
well, I hate to be Captain Obvious, but you know, everybody's either a Bob or a Dan on this committee. I was hoping maybe your middle name was something else.
Lan, Bob, Dan, and Lan. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, dang it. That kind of throws you all off when you say Lancaster, huh?
Yeah, you're the odd man out now, though,
Yeah,
Representative Erickson.
I've been that before, so that's all right.
That's a good observation, Representative Worf.
Yeah, leave it to him. He's always got the wheels turning.
That's right.
That's good though.
All righty.
All right. Well, thanks everybody. Look forward
Thank
to
you.
joining you over the spring, summer, and fall.
You bet. Looking
bet.
forward to it.
Okay.